this week on Dine Drink CLE, the podcast.
At the potential Brook Park location, there's not really like that bar, that local bar
We're
scene.
We're going to pregame at BA Sweeties.
Right, it's
at
not,
the airport Shake Shack.
Yeah, it's not. It would be a totally different drinking environment.
This is a beer fest. It's a music fest. It's a great people watching event, and there's just so much stuff going on. I consider it kind of a mini beer fest wrapped into an overall family festival.
I'm trying to make it make sense in my brain. I'm like, oh, okay.
Cheese and apples.
If you've ever had
No.
apple pie where
cheddar
they put
cheese
cheddar cheese
in
on
the
top
crust.
of it, that's a thing.
I don't like apple pie, so I wouldn't.
Oh my God, I forgot. He's not a pie guy. Like, don't even get us started with that.
I'm Josh Duke.
And I'm Alex Darus.
And you're either watching or listening to Dine Drink CLE, the podcast, where each and every week we are joined by Cleveland's best and brightest food experts, insiders, and influencers talking all things food and drink here in the Northeast Ohio area. What are we talking about today, Alex?
Yeah, so finally we're past Labor Day weekend, entering into the fall. So we're going to talk a little bit about Oktoberfest beers since we talked about the celebration last week, but now we're going to stick to the booze. Also, Brown season is coming up. We're going to talk about a few of our favorite places to watch the Browns and a new restaurant in Lakewood and the Cleveland.com Best Breakfast Contest. So lots to talk about today.
Yep. And first, we got Marc Bona here to talk about Oktoberfest. So welcome, Marc. Tell us about the beer you've been trying out. And,
so you
some
were
of the
official
standouts.
Judge at Cleveland Oktoberfest, correct?
It's one of those really tough assignments, but I've been doing it since 2013. It's a lot of fun. The judges so I should back up and say Cleveland Oktoberfest kicks off the first night with a microbrew competition. This is a competition, serious competition because it's blind judged, so the judges don't know what the beer name or brewery is, but we know what the style is. And most of the judges, there's about 24 of us, most are certified through the Beer Judge Certification Program. These are primarily home brewers throughout Greater Cleveland. They're a good group called SNOB, Society for Northeast Ohio Brewers.
That's great.
It is a great acronym, and it's a lot of fun. And they've asked me back. They asked a couple of us to be media or celebrity, and I always use air quotes celebrity when I talk about myself. So I've been doing this since 2013. A lot of fun. Really, really neat competition, and it's judged by categories. And the big news this year is it's always interesting because you never know.
Yeah, the blind part of it, for sure.
That's it. Every now and then I have an idea of what I'm drinking, but often I don't. And this was a tough one. I judged in the classic Oktoberfest beer category. And Masthead Brewing Company absolutely cleaned up. They won in 7 categories that get gold, silver, and bronze. They won 4 medals, 3 golds and a bronze.
Wow.
Absolutely tremendous showing. And then what the judges do, it's kind of like postseason in sports. The winners of each of the categories then faced off for best of German, best of other styles, and then best of show type of thing. And Masthead just kept moving. I mean, their Augenblick.
Okay, I was going to ask you how to say that.
Their Augenblick is a Helles Lager, was named Best of Show. So that was the best beer according to the judges at the show. So it's good that we're talking about this now because Oktoberfest, I think it was a year or 2 ago, extended to a subsequent weekend. So this Friday and Saturday, Oktoberfest is on. I highly suggest, if you're a beer fan, to go into the main beer tent. There's always a band playing. It's a huge cavernous space, and one side is lined with all the breweries' booths. And sometimes the brewers themselves show up. Sometimes they get staffers, sometimes volunteers, and it's really, really cool. It's just an absolute great event.
Yeah, and with these kind of, or the time of the year and these Oktoberfest beers, what is kind of like the styles, I guess, the standout, or what should someone expect to actually taste?
So all the beer, not all, but most of the beers are Oktoberfest or similar to Oktoberfest style beers. So these are malty. So if you think of malt, if you don't know beer and brewing, just think of the opposite of hops. Hops are bitter. Malt kind of goes in another direction. These beers are a little bit more malt heavy, but they're still very balanced. There's some really good breweries there. By the way, it's all local breweries. The alcohol percentage is low. I mean, they should be around 4.5%. You should get some caramel notes, but not sugary sweetness at all. So it's very different. It's very much, to me, it's one of the things that says, hey, this is fall or fall is coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so you and your elite panel of judges got to try all
The
these
snobs.
Yeah, the snobs got to try all these beers. But so when average everyday festival goers go, they're able to try all these. They're able to go from brewery to sample these themselves too, or how is that set up?
You can, I think they have different sizes, and it's funny not being a patron of the fest and just always judging. I'm not sure, but I know
being a celebrity
No,
snob.
celebrity. You can go and get short pours. It's just like being at a beer fest. That's the neat thing. This is a beer fest. It's a music fest. It's a great people watching event, and there's just so much stuff going on. And it's not just, by the way, they have German food, and they also have fair food as well. So you can go and buy, I want to taste this or taste that, and I think they still do a ticket system. I don't think you're not paying money to the breweries. You're paying for the tickets, and then you exchange them. So it's kind of like, I consider it kind of a mini beer fest wrapped into an overall family festival.
And I know you said Masthead was really like the shining star this year. Is that normally how it shakes out? Are they like a continuously expected to be like the top performer?
Or is
how
it usually just one brewery that would sweep like that?
Yeah.
Or is
So
it
good question. And I was going back and looking at some of my past stories over the last few years. It really is an open thing. I mean, beer is, we have to remember, craft beer is an organic product. So things can change taste, flavor profiles of the same beer just a little bit from year to year. And it depends on palates and a lot of other factors. Now, traditionally, Fatheads has done very well. They always do very well. All the breweries were from Cuyahoga County who won, except for one, Planted Flag of Medina Place. I think they got I can't remember if it was a silver or bronze in one of the categories. So it really is interesting because it's blind judged. You don't know who's going to win, but it's not always the same brewery. Now, Masthead has won some medals before in the past, and they've won some other national competitions as well. They're a very good brewery. I think they're very well run. But what was interesting is I talked to Mike Pellicciati, who's the brewer there, and he said, we were kind of disappointed we didn't win last year, and we put that on us. We needed to work harder and really dial in our flavor profile. It was a big deal to him. Bragging rights are fun, but bragging rights are also grassroots marketing for these brewers. This is a way to get their name out a little bit because we have so many breweries competing for your palate, your attention, and your wallet. We have between, I would say roughly speaking, 80 to 90 breweries in Northeast Ohio. So it's a big deal when they get a win like this.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like you said, with Oktoberfest being 2 weekends now, and now that they won, it's like everyone going next weekend. If you don't know what beer to pick, the Augenblick, is that
Got
it?
it.
And that it kind of seems like a no-brainer because you know already that it won and got so much praise the weekend before. So
I'm sure in the past you've probably also tried ways in which you do this competition where just everyday people vote, but I don't know. Is that also a thing, or is that part of it, or is there any history there?
They used to do that, and I believe that has changed in the last couple of years. There used to be a People's Choice voting, but I don't think they're doing that anymore.
that would be hard. Like, I feel like if you don't know that you're going to go in and, like, judge it. Like, do you have to use a spit bucket?
No. I've never used a spit bucket.
Me neither.
But you do have to be careful. I mean, the stewards bring out these giant, I think they're 20-ounce cups, and then we pour them. We're in pairs, usually 4 people per table per style, and then there's maybe 12 to 16 beers per table, so each pair drinks half the beers, but we're drinking very little. And it's interesting because the aroma, you get the aroma, then you taste it, and then you put it down, and then you can have it again. And when the beer warms up, the flavor profile can be drastically different. Some beers get better, some beers get worse based on their own temperature. That's always an interesting thing to me.
And that just made me think, like, so is there ever a concern about mixing all those different kind of, like, beers?
Yeah, or do you get a palate cleanser in between?
We have water and we have crackers on the table.
Okay.
And here's a little, I learned something a long time ago that is absolutely fascinating. When you're sniffing something, especially wine or beer, you sniff 3 times. you got to stop after the third sniff because your nose isn't going to help you at all with the fourth sniff. So you have to calibrate your nose. And by that, it sounds like a fancy thing, but all you have to do is sniff your shirt just for a second, and then go back and then do 3 sniffs. It's like freshening up your nose. I think it's kind of
okay.
cool.
So if you see me sniffing my shirt out at a restaurant, just mind your business.
No, but that's a good tip too, especially for people if they want to go kind of do their own tasting at the Oktoberfest.
Right.
It's not just you go and drink a bunch of beer and pick your favorite. Judging is hard work.
Yes, it is.
And now we're joined by Peter Chakerian. Hi, Pete.
Hey, friends.
So you guys just completed the best breakfast competition. You have a top 3.
We do. We have a top 3. It's sort of the latest installment in our cleveland.com best of teams, what's doing around town. So best breakfast is the latest that we sort of focused in on, and we did. We landed on a top 3. And it was very exciting. We just visited all of them during the last week, so lots of breakfast.
Well, and you had 2 tie for first.
Yeah, it's a first that's ever happened. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so number 3 we had the City Diner in Old Brooklyn, and then tied for first is Cello's Kitchen in South Euclid and the Sleepy Rooster in Chagrin Falls. So it seems like they're a little bit all over the place too.
Yeah, and each one of the places is very unique and very different, sort of separate onto itself. So City Diner is definitely very much that sort of American style diner, very bustling, kind of energetic, kind of the quintessential neighborhood spot for breakfast and lunch, and they get really busy. They've got a massive menu too. I think their menu is 6 pages, so it's not for the faint of heart. But the flip side of it is you can find anything you want to eat over there. They do all day breakfast, and that's pretty great.
Yeah.
So before you dig too much into these places, when you got the top 3, were there any that were like sort of surprising or kind of came out of left field for you as far as like something that just wasn't necessarily on your radar? Because for me personally, all 3 were kind of like just not on my radar.
It's interesting. I think that I wouldn't say that they weren't on my radar per se, but they're all relatively new. And so I think there are passionate fans of all 3 of those places, and they sort of came out and supported those locations very strongly. So I think that's why they kind of came out of nowhere. There were a lot of other folks that were in the original top 25 that were available to choose from, and they have been around a lot longer, quite a few of them. So
yeah. And so City Diner number 3, and then the top 2 number 1s, Cello's and the Sleepy Rooster. What's the vibe of those places?
The energy at Cello's is really interesting. Cello himself is a Marcello. It's short for Marcello. Is a Uruguayan expat, so he is here. Has been cooking for an awful long time and has this very unique place that sort of feels at once like Mel's Diner from Alice, if you remember the old 70s into the early 80s TV show. But it doesn't have a front entrance. You have to kind of come in through the back. It's very sort of gritty is the word I'm thinking of. It's kind of got that sort of vintage feel to it. And on the flip side of that, Sleepy Rooster, which is out in Chagrin Falls, is right at that hub where the 4 different cities all meet. And so they got really busy from the minute that they opened, and they're in a bit of a strip mall situation. But it's funny, you come up to it, you pull in, and it's got a pretty big parking lot. It looks from the outside like a strip mall. You get inside, and the work that they've done on that, really, it feels like you've gone in some, like tunnel or something and come out into some other building altogether. It's really neat. It's very, very clean and sleek and modern feeling, and they kind of do their own gourmet spins on some things where I think Cello's kind of leans more in the sort of ethnic direction with some of their specialty items on their menu. They have empanadas of various varieties that Cello makes from scratch every single day, and when they run out, they run out. They don't have a whole bunch of them backlogged to freeze or anything, so there's a lot of great food there too.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that too. So you guys are visiting the top 3. You obviously have to get a feel for the menu. Like, what are you ordering? What is your philosophy with ordering like, because obviously you can't order the 6 pages at City Diner.
No, quite the contrary. We really decided to focus on like 3 or 4 of their best-selling dishes. And because all 3 also serve lunch, we wanted to have a couple of lunch items that are fairly good sellers for them too. And that's sort of the litmus test, I guess, for lack of a better word, for what they do, how they do it, and that was what we did.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, because I'm just thinking like a lot of breakfast places offer a lot of the same stuff, but the really special ones I think offer something kind of unique. So it's kind of cool that you're going based on what's the most popular. So hopefully whatever's good and unique rises to the top there. Was there anything like?
Yeah, what stood out? Like the empanadas, obviously, but other dishes.
I think the empanadas at Chelo's were really delicious and unexpected. They do all different varieties of fillings for those, so that was neat. Sleepy Rooster has a bunch of different sort of gourmet spins on things. They have something called Geta, which if you're from the Cincinnati sort of Kentucky area, that sort of is a big popular breakfast thing. They take steel cut oats and mix it with pork sausage and onion and some other ingredients, and so they fry those up into patties, and they go really well with various egg styles. So that's
interesting.
That sounds
super
interesting. Yeah.
cool thing. The other thing that
savory
they do,
oatmeal cake. That's what it sounds like.
But it's not thick though. It's very thin, and I know I can see your face. You're like, I don't know about this.
We'll eat it. We would try it.
We'll try it. Yeah,
it is delicious. It's a savory thing. So the other thing that they have on their menu, and they even put it on the menu and say, we know it's weird, try it anyway. It's essentially a pancake that has caramelized apples and then like a cheddar cheese sort of chip cooked into it.
Oh, I would eat that. I would eat that. Josh looks like
I'm trying to make it make sense in my brain. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, cheese and apples.
If you've ever had
No.
apple pie where
put cheddar
they put
cheese
cheddar cheese
in
on
the
top
crust.
of it, that's a thing.
I don't like apple pie, so I wouldn't.
Oh my God, I forgot. He's not a pie guy. Like, don't even get us started with that.
I knew we would find something in here.
No,
Yeah, but
I would eat
I'd try
that.
it,
No,
yeah.
no, because people will put like cheese in the pie crust because it. He hates it.
I don't know. It just sounds like I'm just imagining like me taking a bunch of Ruffles, like cheddar Ruffles, and putting them on a pancake with some apples and caramel.
Cheddar Ruffles. That's.
I mean, it's a chip, isn't that? Is that what you just described?
Yes, but he's saying like it's cheese and it turns into a chip.
Take shredded cheese.
Oh.
Not like a chip, not
put
a
it
potato
on a
chip.
flat top.
All right.
And
I'm
then
sorry.
No,
I
you're
missed
good.
a
DIY cheese it.
Okay.
Kind of, sort of.
Kinda?
Yeah. Yeah, so there you go. And I guess sort of circling back, City Diner, while their menu tends to be the most sort of mainstream of the 3, they do have some interesting sort of ethnic angles, and I think are going to play up more on that with their specials. They do have a daily specials board in the restaurant and put a whole bunch of really good things on there. The one thing I was surprised to see on their menu, there used to be a place on East 55th called Biggie's. This is going back a ways. It's a gas station, and they would serve food. They used to have this thing that was called the Clevelander sandwich, and the Clevelander sandwich was served on rye bread that was buttered and toasted. They would, on the flat top, cook a burger and then put corned beef and sauerkraut. It was basically like a Reuben burger, but it was done like a patty melt. You follow me?
On a rye bread.
It was wonderful, and this is something that City Diner has sort of replicated. I don't know what inspired it exactly, whether it was Biggie's or some other sort of location, but way back in the day, that was the sandwich to have, especially if you were coming home from a late night or something.
Yeah, no, that does sound good. You would eat that.
Yeah, I think so.
What you don't like rye bread?
No, I would. I didn't. I said I would.
No, but yeah, so that's obviously a little more.
Just get it with hot sauce, you know that.
Yeah, or something. I don't even know.
Bag of flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah,
on the
he would
side,
just
too.
dump
That's. I
Cheetos.
mean, you can't go wrong with that. Now, that's one thing you need to put on a pancake.
Ew!
And I don't know why I said that. I take
Flaming
that. I
hot
retract
Cheeto
that.
pancakes?
Wait, hold on though. Wait, if you if you caramelize some kind of like.
Caramelize a Cheeto?
No. Maybe not caramelize is the right word, but I'm just thinking there's got to be some kind of a a hot honey pancake that you could like put the Cheetos in, or the Cheeto dust. Ooh, I'm cooking something right here. Hot honey with crushed up Cheetos mixed
And a pancake.
as a garnish. Yes, cooked in the pancake. Yes. With the dust on the top.
I hate
that. Does sound really
There's
good.
something a little odd about this whole thing, but
I want to try that now. I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
make
which
that.
one of the top 3 breakfast places will make Josh's order if he goes in and asks for pancakes with flaming hot Cheetos?
That's a good question. I think of all 3, maybe Cello's would, because Cello tends to make things from scratch for people who are interested in something off menu.
Okay.
So when Yadi and I were there doing our visit, they were making a breakfast quesadilla for someone, but it wasn't just a breakfast quesadilla. It was a dessert breakfast.
Okay,
quesadilla.
explain.
So, well, my guess is, and I didn't get to see it firsthand, I was just hearing from the kitchen what they were kind of going through. It sounded to me like they were trying to take the best of sort of pancake and waffle toppings and work them into a quesadilla that would be sort of sweet.
I'm going to go home and make that.
Maybe had a little savory thing going on.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Very, very curious.
It was curious. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I would eat that. But no, now this is making me very hungry for breakfast, and people have to, I guess, tune in to cleveland.com to see your stories and full reviews of all 3, right?
Stories are going to start going up here pretty much momentarily. So I think by the time you're actually hearing this or watching this podcast, we will have had the stories starting to bubble up, and then we'll have an aggregate post the following Monday, which will then, I think, make it to print.
Yeah, you can plan your weekend brunch plans for sure.
Yeah, do they? I'm guessing they all have brunch and mimosa.
If
I know. I'm just making.
Not
sure.
all have mimosas. You need to have a booze license.
I thought that was your criteria last time.
It was a brunch. This is best breakfast, not best brunch.
Okay, true. Okay, so Alex, it's Brown season, or it's about to be very shortly.
It's Sunday.
Yeah, that's Sunday first game. And you're working on a piece that's going to help tell Browns fans where they can go to watch the game at a bar, right?
Yeah, just kind of like, I feel like it's the season where they're going to the muni lot, or they're having people over on Sunday, and sometimes you just like want to go to a bar, not cook, and just be able to watch the TVs and stuff. So kind of highlighting some different local bars and stuff like that.
So before you get into your list and some standouts for you that we want to recommend to the people, how are you coming up with this? Because I feel like in my mind when I hear that, I'm like, every bar in Cleveland is going to be a Browns bar.
Yes. Something that does make it a little bit, I guess, easier a starting place is a lot of the Browns backers clubs. There's a lot of different ones that kind of headquarter at different restaurants. I know Browns Backers with a Twist is at Twist Social Club, and they're like an LGBTQ and allied Browns like fandom that they just gather every week at Twist. I also know Grindstone Tap House in Berea. I think that's the headquarters of another backers bar. And usually these places, they do a lot more than just like having a bunch of TVs. Like they'll do raffles, they'll do charity stuff. You can buy squares, you can buy T-shirts. Like Twist has really cool Browns backers with the Twist T-shirts. And so kind of just highlighting some different places too. And also if you wanted to go do either like a pregame before going to the actual game or somewhere to watch after stumbling out of the muni lot, just kind of thinking of where people are,
Yeah, so your list isn't like every single bar in Cleveland that you can watch a Browns game at. It's more like this
and
is a good.
Please don't email me if I forgot one. Like I did forget.
Yes, we did. They're not all in there. It would be impossible. But yeah, it kind of just sort of stand out. A lot of Browns backer or organized where you could see like more activity.
Yeah, and
going
like
on.
mostly like 95% of the people are there to like watch Browns game, which obviously I keep mentioning Twist, but that's going to be on the list because also something I love about watching games there is they have tons of TVs inside and outside. They have like a huge projector screen, but the food is from Landmark Smokehouse next door, and they have like the best brunch, the best brisket nachos, fried chicken sandwiches. Like, so I would pick that. I am there because I like the vibe and I like the food, and sometimes like a drag queen will do a performance during halftime.
Yeah, I do. I do think that Swiss is a good location, obviously. But I know for the playoff game that we had earlier this year, we were like scrambling to find a good spot to watch it. And I know there was a Browns backers event in some place in Ohio City that's near Jukebox. Exactly. Yes. And that
I think they're the headquarters for the Hingetown backers.
Yes, exactly. And that's on my radar, but we didn't land there. We actually landed at Saucy Brew Works. And they have this giant like backspace. I don't know what you would call it, but it's like this giant space, and they just put a projector against the wall, and basically people just brought lawn chairs or sat on the floor or stood up, and it was just a giant room filled with like I don't know, 60 plus people maybe. So that was a really, really insane experience, and that game didn't go well for my memory.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But yeah, that's a good one for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's like these places that a lot of the bars, they try to have like the Browns party vibe that you would have at like your friend's house on a Sunday without like anyone having to do all the work. A few other good places, like kind of going off that with the breweries, is Collision Bend Brewery in the Flats. They have one in Euclid too. Like they're going to be open early for all the Browns games. They're going to have like different tailgating menus, brunch all day. But what they do too is they have like free shuttles, and then I think you can pay for like a boat shuttle to take you to the stadium if you want to like pregame there, go to the game, or they'll be open all day after that too.
That sounds like my type of plan. Really, really fun. Another thing that just came to my mind, not exactly a bar, but not exactly not a bar. Jack Casino has a whole sports room. I don't know if it's called a sports room. There's a specific name to it, but it's,
the sports like betting room.
Yeah, it's like you can do sports betting, but there's like chairs upon chairs upon chairs in this giant screen where they play the Browns game every week. And if you're looking for a good vibe and maybe some drinks, I know there's a bar like literally like maybe feet away from the watching area. That's another like interesting place to go. That's in the downtown area.
Yeah. And another one too, kind of downtown, is obviously like Winking Lizard. There's a million Winking Lizard locations. They've been around like 40 years as a sports bar for a reason, but the downtown one will be open 8 a.m. every Browns game. You can go there, drink craft beer at 8 a.m. and then walk to the game too. So, I mean, Cocky's in the Flats, Grindstone Hap House in Berea, they actually are really advertising, because I don't know if you remember last year, some of the games people couldn't get on like cable. And Grindstone Tap House is letting everyone know they bought NFL Sunday ticket and they will be playing every game. So that's also kind of like why it's good to follow like your kind of favorite local watering holes and stuff to make sure they can even like play the games. Because remember like how weird that was last week? Yeah.
That was part of the issue. We were scrambling because the bars were scrambling to figure out if they can get the rights, I guess, to stream the game.
Like, I remember, I forget which bar, but one of them like put it on in Spanish, but then they just had the radio, like they muted the TV and put the radio on just so people could watch it.
And pure insanity.
Yeah.
But on another note, it's going to be interesting. Right now, it's kind of outside of the foodie space, but since we're talking Browns and stuff, it might bleed over a little bit. You know, where they're still not 100% sure if the Brown Stadium is going to be in downtown or in Brook Park. So that conversation probably going to go for a long time. And so I think it's just going to be kind of crazy for some of these bars if they move it outside of downtown Cleveland.
Well, yeah, and I think like regardless whether they move it or not, it's like it's going to probably greatly impact like the cultural side of it, because I mean, even if you're not a huge sports fan, like the Browns season is like a cultural phenomenon in greater Cleveland. So I think too, like especially now, like all of these places, especially like in the Flats, like Cocky's in the Flats, like great places to kind of start your day and walk over, but who knows?
Yeah, and then at the potential Brook Park location, there's not really like that bar, that local bar
scene. We're gonna pregame at BA Sweeties.
Right, it's
at
not
the airport Shake Shack.
Yeah, it's not. It would be a totally different drinking environment. It would just be so different, and I don't know if I'm gonna just go ahead and say it would be worse, but it definitely doesn't sound positive.
I mean, I also just think it would have to. That whole area would be totally revamped. Like, because I know in Massachusetts, like the Patriots play in Foxborough, which is like an hour away, and they've kind of like built up Foxborough to be like it's very like Crocker Parky, you know what I mean? Like kind of that. So it's like a city outside of a city kind of thing. So I feel like they would have to do that, but who even knows? Yeah. It's so weird. But I don't know. I'm excited for Browns season because I love all dips, like chip dips, like the dips at parties.
Where is this going?
No, like football food is like dips, chili soups, pulled meat in a crock pot. You know, like warm and comforting food.
Chili for me.
Yeah. Chili cook-off season. That goes hand in hand. What, do you ever do a chili cook-off?
I would. I have not, but yeah.
My parents do it every year.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. My mom makes white chicken chili.
And in Lakewood, there is a new steakhouse that you're writing about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, Artis in Lakewood. It's a new restaurant, the first from Andrew Mansauer, who is a Cleveland Heights native. He's most recently worked at Edwin's. But it's a new steakhouse opened in like the middle of August. And it's kind of very Miami Art Deco vibe. And their whole menu is like not really an average steakhouse. Like Andrew wanted to build the restaurant because he's heard so many times of people in Lakewood, why don't we have a steakhouse? Why don't we have a steakhouse? There's a million restaurants that probably have a great steak special, but Artis has, I think, at least 6 cuts. But it's so different, too. Like, they have all this different global-inspired cuisine, and everything that he does is kind of a classic with a twist. Like, even a regular Caesar salad there, like, there's no romaine lettuce in it. It's like, it's all different. So they have all these steaks and different shareable plates inspired by different global cuisine. There's a little bit of Asian, Middle Eastern, everything. And even the menu is not laid out how a typical restaurant menu is. So usually you have like your appetizers, salads, entrees. Theirs menu is now, later, in a while, worth the wait. So there's certain things you can get like right when you sit down, and you can get a thing of spicy cucumbers or nuts or something like that. But then you can wait and order your different foods, and then maybe your steak comes out in 45 minutes and you still want that side of cucumbers or their eggplant kind of. They have this, it's not a baba ganoush, it's called something else, but it's an eggplant spread, and you can order it from the nows and kind of use it as a condiment. So everything's really shareable, and they just have some really different dishes. Like one, if you've been around me the last like week, I have not stopped talking about how I need to eat this.
What is it?
It is their version of lobster bisque, but they take like a soup dumpling, like a jai-long bao that usually has like pork and some kind of Asian like broth in it. It's Chinese or Shanghainese, I think. But they put lobster bisque in it, like in a dumpling.
Ooh, that does sound really good.
I need it. And even their drinks are so cool. Like instead of an Aperol spritz, they make this stuff called Cinquedita, which is kind of a infused botanical, very similar like liqueur. And they use that in their own spritz. So it's not like even a bottle of booze you could go buy at a liquor store and recreate yourself. It's like they're making this in-house, and they use that in another drink. Like I think they call it a lemon Negroni, which is like totally not typical at all. So yeah, everything there is kind of a classic with a twist. So it's not your average steakhouse for sure.
Yeah, and just looking at it, you can tell it's like way different from like normal steakhouses. So like a thing that I can think about comparing it to that just came out, had a lot of buzz, steak. Definitely not anything like that. Where a steak has like a very dark, sort of like very cool, trendy, sort of like edgy almost, but still very fun, like aesthetic. This is very light, very airy, but at the same time, I think they have in common, outside of just being innovative in their dishes and offerings, I think this one, what they both have in common is that they both sort of aren't so like buttoned up. You know, I like that. It's not like you have to dress up to go there, but if you wanted to, you could and still feel good about it.
100%. And I think that's what's kind of cool to see. Like, like a concept, like a steakhouse that's been a popular American restaurant, cuisine, date night. Like, we all know what it is. But these are two very different concepts in very like niche neighborhoody. Like, you can make a reservation or you can walk up and if you don't feel like making dinner on a Wednesday night and eat at the bar kind of thing. But yeah, it's very cool how people are taking these concepts that we are so familiar with and doing different stuff with it for sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, there's so many things at Artis I want to eat. They have like duck confit, pierogies, a fried baked potato, which I don't even know like how you do that. And also, but the space is huge. Like, they're gonna in the next year have an outdoor patio. They have a garage space they're trying to figure out what to do with. He's toying with the idea of doing cooking classes because they have a great prep kitchen space. Kind of basically a little bit of everything. So it seems like a restaurant now that's starting as your usual evening dinner spot, but it's like a matter of time for more stuff to come.
Okay, so I know they're not comparable. Talking about steak, can you just give a summary of like sort of the mindset or environment or the occasion you would go for steak versus this?
Okay. No, I think steak is extremely versatile. Like, I think it's very family friendly. They have an amazing kids menu and kind of different like that. But you also can go in there and it is a prefixed menu. Like, you can get your shareable sides and stuff like that. Whereas Artis is kind of like you order what you want. Like, he was saying he wants people who go to Artis to have the best meal they've ever had at a steakhouse and not even feel like they need to eat a steak because they have all of these different things. So I think if you're looking for something a little more classic but still trendy, like you go to steak,
That's a good way
family
to put
friendly.
it.
I think it's a crowd pleaser at steak for sure. Like, I can't imagine even a picky eater going there and not being able to find something that they would like. Whereas Artis is a little bit more like, if you want to try something you haven't had in that way at all, like it's ingredients like also something Andrew said about Artis is that they're not weird and odd for the sake of being weird and odd. Like, they do everything really thoughtfully and their dishes are unique, but not just for the sake of being like that. So I don't know, I think I would go to steak for like my mom's birthday, like with a family, or like maybe a date night, and I would go to Artis for like girls book club.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah.
Like, that's what I said. I'm envisioning the two things, but I think that they're both great options, and I think it's just, I mean, personally, I think I've said this on here before. I was not a person who goes out to a steakhouse and gets a steak and potato because I think it's something I can make.
Oh yeah,
myself.
You have said that.
But I think in both of these options, they have so many other great dishes that aren't steak that make it attractive, but also the things that they're doing, like at steak, how you can add bling and different sauces and stuff like that. And then at Artis, they have a huge list of butters and sauces. It's just not your average steak at all. And I think it's kind of getting away from that white tablecloth, baked potato, ribeye, side of broccoli thing and making it into something more fun. Thanks so much for listening to or watching Dine Drink CLE, the podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at DineDrinkCLE, and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at cleveland.com/newsletters.